Hi, Almolex Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days to Die. Alright, I want to continue doing some exploring out here with my little... Nope, got too high. Can't see nothing. Or no, this is smoky territory. Must be. Ooh, I see a vulture down there. I don't know how far smoky territory goes. I don't know how far the map goes, to be honest. This is where I die because I travel into, radioactive land. I don't know, radioactive land is a thing. Why did we crash into the ground? That was weird. So, what's weird is I can kind of see something on the horizon there. What was that noise? I think here there be dragons. Ooh, okay. So we got some kind of weird, Oh, it's wind? Okay. I can't see anything and I don't like it. Will you go away? Uh-oh. So we got some really weird terrain. Look at this stuff. This is bizarre. Jeez. Well, I wanted to explore the bizarre. It did not want me to. Man. So is this map this big? Is there that much terrain? I guess I assumed when the roads ran out that that was about the end of it, but maybe not. Maybe they're just territory is not connected by road. I think I'm going to go take a look at that. So, I did get a chance to finish watching Cowboy Bebop. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's not identical to the anime, but I rather enjoyed it. It wasn't so much of a stretch. Like, I mean, you expect some differences, obviously. So it wasn't so much of a stretch that I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, no, this is nothing like the show. These characters are not the characters. I will say that Faye feels a little off. I really enjoyed Faye on the show. but I don't. It's been a long time. I don't feel she seems a little more. I don't even know what the word is that I want for it. She seems a little more. I don't. I don't know. Um, I was gonna say self-assured, but that's not true. Um, Immature, maybe. Uh, than what I remember Faye in the show being. I mean, I'm not saying that they were like mature characters. Obviously, they were, you know, uh, childish in some instances. Um, but she seemed very not as self-assured world-wise as I expected for Faye, because I always felt like Spike comes from a very specific worldview, um, because of how he was raised and what he did, and what happened to him. And Faye seems a little less singularly focused in her worldview. Maybe is I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, obviously, or I'm having a hard time putting it into words. Um, but yeah, one of my friends, he said he had heard that people really hated Ed, who doesn't show up until the last episode, and she's in there for like a minute. She says like 3 sentences. I don't know how you can have hate for a character after 3 sentences. But apparently they don't think that she's doesn't act anything like Ed. I'm like, are you kidding me? She was very hyper, very spastic, and that's what I remember about Ed, who was one of my favorite characters in the show. But yeah, overall, it's very good. Faye is close enough that it didn't break anything for me. Um, uh, the stuff they pulled from the series is done very well. Um, uh, John Cho does an amazing job as Spike. I think he's very, very good as the titular Spike Spiegel. I guess he's not titular because then the show would be called Spike Spiegel. It's not. But yes, it's really, really fun. I enjoyed it better than Wheel of Time so far. Um, Wheel of Time is enough different that I feel like they pull. Well, no, what could they pull from? Wheel of Time is enough different that the writers and directors or whatever, are putting their own spin on their version of the story in a way that is their version of the story and not their version of what. How do I explain this? It's like um, okay, so the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? The events in Texas Chainsaw Massacre did not occur. Didn't happen. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was inspired by some real events. Um, and so it kind of feels like that. The Wheel of Time show is inspired by the Wheel of Time book series. but is not as close to the Wheel Time book series as I felt the Cowboy Bebop show. Now, the Cowboy Bebop show does have more stuff to it than the anime. There's definitely a new storyline, or an expanded storyline that was not in the original anime. But I'm never really had a problem with like what they call filler arcs in anime, which is where the show makes up a storyline to fill in gaps. It's very common. It's very common in anime for there to be filler arcs that fill in gaps of either um, filling gaps of either bits of the story that maybe need to be expanded on, um, or there's just a gap in time between when the source material. Is that a fountain in a park? I don't think I've ever seen one of those before in this game. But a gap in time between when the source material and the show don't overlap. It'd be like Game of Thrones, the TV series, right? Started years after the final book had been written. And I was just like, oh man, how are they gonna do this? Because that last book was, years ago now. And not the final book in the story, just the last book that had been written. And now we're like, what, 9 or 10 years after the show? Because it went like 8 seasons, right? So, I don't know when the Game of Thrones TV show took place. I'm pretty sure the final book was written in 2011-ish, and so the show must have started shortly after that. I could look it up, but I'm flying, so I can't take my hands off the thing. And so they got to the end, and while they probably discussed with the author how the show was supposed to end, he did not, in fact, write the last book. He's been spouting nonsense about how he has it occasionally, or stuff like that. But clearly it hasn't happened. And I honestly believe that he hadn't finished the book. Thought he could finish the book before they got to that part in the show. Saw that the show had made changes to the story, that the show was massively popular, and wanted to wait and see what the people liked. And then after all of that, then he would write the final book. And then what happened was they got to the end of the show with the ending that he probably had a hand in, because I mean he has once stated that the book series will end in a field of ash and gravestones. I have not finished the Game of Thrones show, but I'm aware of how it ends, and it ends about the way I expected. And he still hasn't released the final book. So, or final started even the next book. I don't know if it's supposed to be the final book or if there's going to be additional books, but yeah. So that's an example of where the TV show and the source material did not overlap. And so once you get to the point where once you get to the point before I want to say it's been too long since I read those books, but I really want to say that the last book ends with um, Jon Snow being killed before his resurrection, which I was pretty sure was going to happen. I've had many arguments with my brother-in-law over that. He hates Jon Snow, but clearly Jon Snow is the prophesied Lord of Light or whatever the prophecy says. I don't remember. So this is weird. This just ends. I thought there used to be radiation zones. Oop. And instead I have flat Earth. Come on, I don't need to hit the ground. Although these are some cool little islands out here in flat Earth land. Oh, oh, oh. Apparently that edge is radiation land, but it doesn't look like it. I don't like that. There's no warning. But yeah, anyways, I feel like if you've ever seen the Shannara Chronicles or Legend of the Seeker, right? Both of those are a base storyline pulled from the source material, but the actual shows are way different. And so it's, I don't know, sometimes it's bizarre to me. I get you can't put a book into a show. It's very rare that that ever occurs correctly. But sometimes the choices made um, on how you alter the story to fit the allotted media, I find bizarre. And I mean, let's face it. My biggest pet peeve right now with Wheel of Time is that they made it to Shadar Logoth, and Mashatter was not in the story, and they replaced Mashatter, which is like this living fog creature, with black mold. I mean, it looked cool and all, but it was not Mashatter. And Mashatter does play a tiny part in the story in later moments. And I'm very, like, huge spoilers. Should the show continue on long enough to get to book, I don't know, 10 or 12 or whatever, there's a moment in those books where they use Mashatter to help protect them while they cleanse the male power, the male side of the power. Um, and so they have to fight off both Mashatter and all the people coming for them. But Mashatter also gives them some protection because it's indiscriminate in who it goes after. And so the fact that it will go after both good guys and bad guys allows them to use it as a defensive measure. Come on, you're out of fuel. I want to land. Now it's just being ridiculous, and it's gliding forever. Thank you. Okay, now let's grab this. Let's repair this. And all I did was flew back here. So yeah, I kind of am at the edges, I guess. I thought maybe I could find a new city I hadn't been to yet. But now I gotta go find some gas. So, I mean, I still like it. It's just not the book like I wanted it to be, you know? Uh, so, so I also have a weird story. I don't feel like I have any luck with repairmen. Uh, they're not always necessarily rude, but they make some odd comments and choices about things that I don't understand why you would do some of those things. And I mean, I'm sure it seems all perfectly reasonable to them, but well, maybe not their comments. They do tend to be rude. Um, I have worked in a field where you interact with customers, right? I taught college classes, right? I dealt with people constantly. There's a knack to speaking with people that makes it so that you don't insult them every chance you seem to think you need to take. Um, and so I called because my furnace, I'm sorry, my boiler uh, is um, is giving off smoke smells, not strong ones, but smoke smells, maybe a little gassy smell in the house, right? Seems like something I should get taken care of. And so I call the people we normally use. And I'm polite. I'm not rude when I talk to people. I mean, unless there's a reason, right? I mean, you're talking to your friends, you might be sarcastically mean and rude to them because that's what you do with your friends. But when I'm speaking to a business that I want to come out and do some work for me or something along those lines, I'm not outrightly angry or rude with them. And so I call and I'm like, hey, my furnace is giving off exhaust fumes here in the basement, and I'd like to get someone out to check it out. This was on Friday of last week, I may have already discussed this phone call, but it plays into what's gone down. And so the lady goes, "Well, is it a furnace or is it a boiler?" Because I said I said that it heats the house and heats the water. And she goes, "Is it a furnace or a boiler?" I said, I don't know because I'm not clear on the information. I'm not a furnace person. And so I'm like, I don't know. It's in the basement. It heats the water. And so she says, "Well, a furnace, just like this. Well, a furnace, if it heats the no, okay." She says, "If it heats the water, then it's most likely a boiler." I'm like, "Okay, then it's a boiler." Whatever. I still need someone to come check it out. I don't know what that difference makes. I don't understand the point of her saying that. I don't care what you call it. I need your professional to come out and take a look at it. Now, we live in a small area. I did not call a furnace specialist. I called heating and cooling repair. Clearly, that includes the boiler that's in my house. Um, I assumed it was just called a furnace because if you go online and you look up furnace, it includes what I have as a furnace. It does not differentiate that it's a boiler. Uh, and so yeah. So then she says, "Well," and I called it like 1 in the afternoon, I want to say. And she goes, "Well, I don't have any openings today. I might be able to get someone out around 4:30, but it's probably not going to happen today. It will probably it'll probably be Monday." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "I got an opening on Monday between 10 and noon." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "That sounds great." And she says, "So we might be able to get someone out tonight, unless it's an emergency, and then we could do overtime." I'm like, "Well, I don't think it's an emergency. Otherwise, I would have called a week ago when it started happening." I just thought it was, we've switched over from air conditioner blowing in air from outside to furnace running. Sorry, boiler running consistently. Um, Although once again, it's the boiler, so it has been running consistently year round because it heats our hot water, and we use hot water every day. And so I'm like, "No, I wouldn't call it an emergency." And she's like, "All right, well then it'll be Monday." I'm like, "All right." And she says, "So it'll be 10. It'll be 10 or between 10 and noon, and we'll contact you before we come out. Uh, and if I get a chance tonight, I will send someone over tonight, but don't wait around on us." I'm like, "Okay." So Monday, I'm sitting here, and I get up at 8:30. Now that's not early to some people, but to me, it's about an hour plus before I normally get up, and because I wanted to make sure that when they called, I was awake. And Yep, about 11, the dude shows up. Never called, and so I'm like, "Huh, he didn't call. I wonder if I gave him the wrong phone number." Um, not that I intentionally gave them the wrong phone number or like have more than one phone number necessarily. Just sometimes when I give my number, I give the wrong area code, um, because the town that we live in has more than one area code, and it's only been my phone number for like 11 years now. Uh, and since I don't call myself, it takes me a while to get that in my head. Um, I'm still not sure of my phone number, and I've had that for, or my cell phone number, and I've had that for like 7 years. And Okay, dude, pick a side. And so he comes in. He spends about 15 minutes looking at my boiler and runs a check on it because it's running while he's here. He runs a check on it, and it is not giving off any dangerous fumes, but it's also not working correctly. Um, and so he's like, "Well," he's like, "it does look like there's some rusting. Um, Whoever put this in," I'm like, "Well, it wasn't me. It's been here since I moved in. We didn't make any changes to it. Um, you know, your your company's name is slapped on the front of the furnace, so I don't know who put it in, but And he's like, well, I will go back and look to see what kind of vent pipe it was supposed to have. And I'll get that paperwork together and I will contact you tonight, he said. I'm like, all right, sounds good. I didn't get no phone call that night. And I'm like, well, maybe, he got there after hours. Um, I'm patient. It's not a big deal to me. It is Thanksgiving week, though, which is a holiday. And so I am a little concerned that I would like, this fixed. I have company coming over to spend a couple of days, and I didn't want to subject them to the same fumes that I've been getting. Uh, so uh, Tuesday goes by. I got distracted with work, and when I looked up, I'm like, all right, I need to call them. And then the next thing I know, it's like 6:30 at night. Uh, well, that's a problem because they close at 5. Um, so, which is a thing I found with these kinds of places. Like, they have very short hours compared to how I work. And they open at 8, close at 5. I started work at 9 yesterday. I didn't finish till 10:30 p.m. And so because their 8 to 5 includes things like their lunch breaks and stuff, and my 8 hours does not. But yeah. So anyways, to finish up my story here, I called them yesterday, and today's Thanksgiving. Yep. So today's Thursday, and so I called them yesterday, and they said I got someone different to talk to, and I'm like, hey, I called on Friday, and you guys came out on Monday to look at my boiler that was some exhaust fume issues, and I hadn't heard anything back. And he's like, all right, let me look it up. What's your address? And so I gave him my address, and he's like, yep. The parts are on order. And so, we'll get back to you when the parts come in. I'm like, well, I don't have any heat today because the heat quit working on Wednesday. I woke up and it was this drives me crazy. I woke up at 9. There are 4 other people in this house. It's 62 degrees in the house. Right? That's not a oh, look what we found kind of thing. That's it's cold in here. Something's not working. No one cared to look. Anyways, so I called them like, yeah, I've got no heat. So now it's Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. They're not going to operate on Thanksgiving. Clearly. And so I'm like, yeah, I got no heat. And the dude goes, well, the problem that we're working on can cause that. So we'll let you know when the parts come in. All right, thanks, I guess. So, no heat. So we had to get a couple of electric heaters. And then everybody went on vacation. So I'm here with just me and the animals until later this afternoon, or this evening, when my niece comes over to hang out for a couple of days. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, clearly you understand, right? I called. I'm concerned. I don't have any heat. Um, and your whole response is, "Oh yeah, what we're working on can cause that." But it wasn't causing that. I had heat before. I believe what has happened through my own personal investigation of the situation. I believe the exhaust is not working, which is what they're going to be replacing. And because of that, the sensor in the boiler has uh, become dirtied, and because it is now blinking with a red light. Uh, I have it shut off completely. I'm not going to die because they can't get out here and fix it. Um, but when I turned it on this morning, in case the wind was an issue yesterday, I don't know why it wouldn't work, but apparently there's a sensor involving the exhaust and fire um, that can become dirtied and stop your boiler from working, aka gas furnace. But yeah. Anyways, with that, I am gonna call it a day. So, whoa, what is that, buddy? You're not gonna finish this? You gonna swing at it a couple times? Beware of the small things, lean to the light, and I will talk to you later.